So hello guys, I'm back with a new lecture, and in this particular lecture we're going to study a very important topic which is kind of included in the application of calculus, which is called the curve tracing. Clear? Curve tracing. So what happens, when we study functions, we have a function, we have different kinds of functions. We have polynomial kind of functions, or rather we have algebraic functions and transcendental functions. We have polynomial functions, we have rational functions, irrational functions, we have trigonometric functions, exponential functions, and we have different kind of functions. Now, to what is the best way to understand a function? We can declare a particular function in many types. Okay, if you want to declare a function, you can declare a function in a number of ways. You can declare it, mathematically, or by using a formula of the behavior of the function. You can declare a function graphically. Okay, you can declare a function using a tabular form. Using a tabular form, you can actually show us what are the change in the values of the function as we change the input variable or change the independent variable of the function. Okay, what is the behavior of the function as it goes along the x-axis or along the any axis as you want. And you can also declare a function using a statement. So these are four possible ways of declaring a function. Graphical representation is the most descriptive method of declaring a function because it actually carries a lot of information about the function. Okay, it shows you the intervals in which the function is increasing or the function is decreasing. It shows you the intervals at which the function tends towards infinity, or the function where gives you the zero value, or the values for which the function becomes a zero. These sort of details about the function. What is the nature of movement of the function? What is the pattern which the function actually tries to show us graphically? So it carries actually different actually the details, complete details of a given function. So the graphical representation of a function is kind of very much important to understand mathematics. I'm not going into details of pure and applied, that is a different concept. Mathematics, a lot of mathematics is completely dependent upon functions. So curve tracing is kind of very much important because it helps you to understand functions in a more descriptive way. So in this lecture we are actually going to do that only. So how to understand the graphical representation of function? So first let us understand a few topics of calculus, or more to be more exact, differential calculus. The first one being minima and maxima. So what is a minima and a maxima? Suppose this is a function you have. Suppose this is your y axis, this is your x axis. Okay, this is a function you have. Now we can clearly find that there are certain points where suppose the function is denoted by y. So there are certain points on the 2D plane where y has a maximum value and where y has a minimum value. Got it? At these points y is having a minimum value, at these points y is having a maximum value. Further, you can easily notice that at all these points can be called as the extremities of the curve or extreme points of the curve. And you can also find that at every extreme point, be it a maxima or be it a minima, if you draw a tangent at the exact point, the tangent is actually parallel to the x-axis, which actually says that y dash becomes 0 at x equals to a, where you can do it like this, that ya is an extremity. Ya means y at x equals to a. Clear? So there your y dash becomes actually 0. Okay, so this is actually an important application of differential calculus, or important application of derivative, to be more precise. Further, there is one more thing, which we have already studied under the application of the second derivative. We have studied about the concave up and concave up, or concave and convex things, right? This was your convex curve and this was your concave curve. Remember, guys? Now, what are these actually related to finding the maxima and minima concept? So we can actually find one thing. See, when you have a convex curve, the minima lies within the interval of that, or within the interval of the curve where it is convex. Same goes that you will have a maximum extreme point in the interval where you have a concave curve. Okay, am I understood? This is the thing. So basically, if you wanna find the point where you have a maximum point or a minimum point, then what you also need to find is that what is the behavior of the second derivative. Now, in this case, what happens is that your second derivative will be greater than 0. Here what will happen? Your second derivative will be less than 0. Clear? At some point x, at which we are actually trying to find whether you have a maximum point or a minimum point. Got it? So maxima and minima is very much important to understand the graphical representation of a curve. Got it? For example, suppose we have a curve y equals to, say, 3x square plus 2x plus 4, let's say. So what will be the first derivative of it? So its first derivative will be 6x plus 2. Okay. Now we need to equate this to 0 to find an extreme point. We are not at this point. We are not concerned about whether it will be giving us a maximum point or will be giving us a minimum point. So if we equate this to 0, we have that x becomes minus 1 over 3. Now at this point, y may give you a maximum or y may give you a minimum. So whether it is a maximum or minimum, we can achieve that information by using the second derivative. So if I try to find the second derivative of y, so this gives you 6. And 6 is what? 6 is greater than 0. Since 6 is greater than 0, so this is pretty much easily understandable. That, and see one more thing, that your second derivative is not at all dependent upon the value of x. That means whatever be the value of x, you are always gonna get a convex shaped graph. Got it? So from here it is pretty much easily understanding that since at x equals to 1 over 3, you're basically having the y dash equals to 0. So basically this is 100% will give you a minimum point. Got it? Clear? So this is the case of maxima and minima. And the convex concave case is also pretty easily understanding. We have already studied it under a different lecture in my channel only, where if you have a curve, say, given by y, so if you have y dash greater than 0 at, say, x belongs to ab, closed interval, then within this interval, what are you gonna have actually? So basically you are gonna have that this will give you a convex shape within this interval. Okay, and if it is less than 0, then it will give you a concave shape within a specified interval, or an interval along in which this condition is satisfied. Clear? So these are the cases in which we can actually try to find out the shape within an interval. Acha, finding the increasing and decreasing part of a function. So the interval AB, let's say x belongs to AB. Okay, if you have f dash x greater than equal to 0, then the curve is increasing in that interval only. If it is greater than 0, this is greater than equal to 0. If it is greater than 0, then it is called then strictly increasing. Same goes for less than 0. If it is less than 0, it's called strictly decreasing. If it is less than equal to 0, then it is called strictly decreasing. This portion is clear, I guess. So we have covered 3 portions. maxima minima, maxima minima, convexity or concavity, anything you can say, and increasing decreasing, increasing decreasing. Okay, next we need to understand the nature of the function, the symmetric nature of the function. Okay, now we know about the odd and even function cases, right? If you have a function fx and if it equals f of minus x, then f is said to be an even function. If f is an even function, then it is symmetric, it is symmetric about y-axis, it is symmetric about y-axis. So if you are basically given a multi-valued function, say you are given a function depending on the variables x and y, so if f of xy equals say f of minus xy, then this curve will be symmetric about y-axis. If f of xy is equal to f of x minus y, then it will be symmetric about x-axis. Got it? Clear? This portion is clear, I guess. Okay. Further, you can have some more cases actually. Okay, this much is clear, I guess. Suppose you have f xy is equals to f yx. Clear? Then what will happen? Then f will be symmetric about the line y equals to x. Then f will be symmetric about the line y equals to x. Further, if you have f of xy equals f of minus y minus x, so you have interchanged the positions of x and y with y and x, and you have interchanged the sign too. Then what will happen? This will be symmetric about the line y is equals to minus x. Clear? This will be symmetric about the line y is equals to minus x. Also, if your f of x equals to minus f of minus x, I think I have written this. Oh no, I have not written it. If this condition is satisfied, then your f is symmetric about origin. Clear? So these are the cases of symmetric nature. Okay, whether it is symmetric about x-axis or symmetric about y-axis, symmetric about y equals to x, symmetric about y equals to minus x, or symmetric about origin. I guess it's clear. Acha. Next, if we talk about domain and range. What is domain and range? Domain and range. So basically, if you are given y is equals to fx, then there are certain values. There are certain values which are basically independent variables to fx. Okay, there are certain values which are independent variables to fx, or in simple words, there are certain values of x which can be easily put into fx to get a particular output. Clear? Those set of values are particularly called the domain. Clear? For example, if you have fx is equals to say x plus a, x minus a, so basically we can find that all real numbers except the value a can be put in this function to get a particular output. So this becomes the domain of the function. What is the range of the function? The set of all the outputs which we can get by putting the values of the domain which we have got. That particular set of values is called the range of a function. For example, you have the function fx. For example, wait a minute. For example, you have the function fx equals to sin x. We know whatever value we put in the function y equals to sin x will always be in between -1 and 1. So the range of sin x, the range of sin x actually becomes what? The closed interval -1 to 1. Clear? This is the range. What is the domain of sin x? The domain of sin x will be all real numbers. I guess it's clear now what is domain and range. Acha, monotonicity. I have monotonicity is nothing else than the strictness of increasing and decreasing, whether it is increasing or it is decreasing. That much. Concavity, convexity, I have already told you. Point of intersection with x-axis and y-axis, that is also kind of pretty much important. Suppose you have fxy given as a particular function. Now suppose you plot the function on the graph. Basically what happens, roots of fx, let's say y is equals to fx. Okay, roots of y equals to fx are actually intersection in y-axis. So all the values of x, not y-axis, x-axis. All the values of x for which the output comes out to be 0, that is the curve actually intersects the x-axis, all those values are called the roots of fx. And similarly, all those values which intersect the y-axis, those values are called the intersecting points with the y-axis. So how to find, basically, if you put x equals to 0, you will get certain values of y, say a, b, c and so on. These are the values, or these are the intersecting points with the y-axis. Similarly, if you put y equals to 0, you get certain values c, d, e, etc., which are the intersecting points with the x-axis. I guess it's clear now. Okay. Further, there is one more thing, two more thing actually, asymptotes. Now asymptotes, I have already given a lecture on asymptotes in one of the videos in my channel. There are two types of asymptotes. There are rectilinear asymptotes and there are non-rectilinear asymptotes, or the oblique asymptotes, and how to find them. I have already have a lecture on that, so you can please go and check out the video. Last but not the least, there are the points where you get a node, or basically where you get a cusp, or where you get a point of inflection also, where basically singular points. These points are called singular points. Okay, the term I had actually forgotten the term. It surprisingly came to my mind just now. Those are called singular points. At singular points, what happens, the double derivative actually becomes 0. Okay, so there are basically three types of singular points. You have nodes, you have cusps, and you have point of isolation or isolated point of isolation or isolated point. What happens basically, if you have a point, say for like this, and two branches of the curve you are drawing passes through the point. Two branches in the sense, what I'm trying to tell is that this is one branch and this is one branch. So two different branches are passing through the point. These sorts of points are called nodes. Okay, if you try to draw tangent at the node, you will get two different tangents. Okay, you will get two different tangents. Getting two different tangents actually indicate that the point is a node. You can also have a curve like this, where two different branches of the curve will pass through one point, but if you draw tangent at the point, you will get one single tangent to both the branches, common to both the branches. This sort of a point is called a cusp. And you have a point, say like this, and you have a curve like this. So basically there are no real part of the curve about in the neighborhood of this point P. So this sort of a point is called an isolated point. Clear? How to find node, node, cusp or isolated point basically? So there is a very easy method of finding the tangent at that particular point. Basically, very generally speaking, during curve tracing, you will actually be getting to find the node or cusp at the origin. Okay. So first I am telling how to find the singular points at the origin. Then I will be moving on to the general case. So at origin, what happens? Suppose basically what you do is that to find you do what? You find the tangent at the origin. This is the main thing. You find the tangent at the origin. When you find the tangent at the origin, you check whether what you are actually getting, whether you are getting the two different tangents or two different equations of tangent or one particular equation of a tangent. For example, you have the curve, say y square a plus x equals to x square a minus x. Clear? What you actually do is that you equate the lowest degree terms of this equation to find the equation of the tangent at origin. So you get y square times a equals to x square times a, which actually gives you y is equals to plus minus x. So at origin you have two different tangents, y is equals to plus x being one tangent and y is equals to minus x being the other tangent. So two tangents actually indicate that you have a node at the origin. If you would be getting one single tangent, then that would mean that you are having a cusp at the origin. I guess I am clear. Now if you if we are talking about a general case, you know that we are given an arbitrary point and we need to find whether we have a singular point in that part only. So we need to find the we need to rather use the partial derivative to find the singular point at some point. So basically what happens is that, you know, if you have a singular point, say at xy, so xy indicate a singular point, let's say singular point. Acha, I think you people already know about the notations of the partial derivative. What does fxx means? Fxx means that you have partially derivated the function using x and again differentiated it with respect to x only. If xy actually means del 2f over the first x then y, because first you have differentiated with respect to y. If yx refers to this, can be actually written as del 2f over del x square. Clear? Or del x you can also write it like that. Del x square is a better notation. This is del 2f over del y del x, and fyy indicates del 2f over del y square. Got it? Clear? So how to find these singular points basically? So if you have a node at some point xy, then what happens is that fxy, the square of it, minus fxx times fyy will be greater than 0. If you have a cusp, then fxy square minus fxx and fyy equal to 0. And if you have an isolated point, then fxy square minus fxx and fyy will be less than 0. So these are the checks which you need to carry out in order to find the singular point at some point of the given curve. I guess I am clear, guys. Okay, clear? So these are the actual cases which we need to understand before tracing a curve. Okay, so we are gonna actually carry out the plotting of a particular curve, and we will be plotting a very important one. This is a very important curve, which is, I just took an example of it, y square a plus x equals to x square a minus x. Okay, we need to plot this. So first thing we will be checking its symmetry. So you can see that putting y equals to minus y, the curve is not at all changed. So basically this becomes symmetric about x-axis. This becomes symmetric about x-axis. Clear? Achha. Now we need to check what are the points at which it intersects the y-axis and it intersects the x-axis. Clear? So if y equals to 0, you have x square times a minus x equals to 0. That means x equals to 0, 0 and a. Clear? That means if y equals to 0, there are basically you are getting 2 points. Okay, so you are getting 0, 0 twice and you are getting the point a0. Now why are you getting 0, 0 twice? You are getting 0, 0 twice because two branches of this particular curve is passing through origin. Two branches of this particular curve is passing through origin. That is, the curve is passing through origin twice. That means you can have a singular point, or you are gonna have a node or a cusp at the origin basically. Okay, this is what it is clearly indicating. Got it? Clear? And the other point where actually you are having an intersection in the x-axis is a comma 0. Clear? Now we need to check what sort of a singular point we have at the origin. So we need to check the, equate the lowest degree terms of this particular thing, which we have already done. So we had got y equals to plus minus x. Clear? So we are going to get two tangents, two different tangents at the origin, so indicating that we are going to actually have a node at the origin. Clear? And these are the two tangents. I guess it's clear. Okay. Further, what we gonna okay, so this part is done, I guess. Now next what we need to do, now we need to find the asymptote. Okay, so rectilinear asymptote or rectangular asymptote, let's say. Okay, so how to find the rectilinear asymptote? We need to actually equate the highest degree coefficient, the coefficient of the highest degree actually. So what do we get by doing this? So let's see. So what are the highest degrees? So xy square, and here we have x cube. Clear? So first of y, then of x. So if we do that of say of y, let's say, so we get x plus a equals to 0. That is, we get x equals to minus a. Clear? X equals to minus a. I guess it's clear. So this is the rectilinear asymptote which is parallel to the y-axis, which we are getting. Similarly, if for a square minus x we do it, so we get a minus x equals to 0. But actually what we are finding is that, if you equate, so this is clear from this mathematics that if you equate the coefficient of the possible higher power of x, kind of trying to do that, you are not gonna get a line which is parallel to the x-axis. So basically you are not getting any asymptote which is parallel to the x-axis. Am I clear? If you are talking about domain and range, so you have y square a plus x equals to x square a minus x. Basically what are you having from here? You are having y is equals to x times root over of a minus x and a plus x. So basically what is your domain up till here? Okay, what is your domain up till here? So basically you are getting the domain as d becomes your the open interval minus a to closed interval a. Okay, that is excluding minus a and including a. Got it? I guess it clear? Got it? Okay. Your range is actually, all real numbers, kind of all real numbers. Clear? Because we actually don't know what is a here. Now also we need to talk about what are the increasing and decreasing nature of this particular curve given. So we need to check the first derivatives. So if you check the first derivative, you will find that y dash when greater than 0, you have x belonging to the interval 0 and a, and it is less than 0 when you are having minus a to 0. These two intervals. Clear? So now we will use all these things to trace it. Okay. So first thing first, we are having a0 as at a point and we are having a node at the origin. So basically this is one part of the curve. This is one part of the curve. What is the asymptote? The asymptote you are getting is x equals to minus a. So for example, so this is x equals to minus a. So since this is x equals to minus a, what do we actually have? That the curve will tend towards infinity as it tries to move towards x equals to minus a. So basically the curve becomes something like this. So this goes like this upwards and this comes out like this downwards. Clear? Clear? So this is the actual tracing of this particular curve. I guess it's pretty clear now. You can also, show the coordinates or the intervals which are required to make this curve more detailed. Clear? I guess it's pretty clear. We can trace some more curve. Let's see. So let's check out one more curve. Okay. So we have this curve, say let's say y square a square plus x square is equals to x square times a square minus x square. This is a curve given. First let us check its symmetric nature. So we can easily find that, putting y is equals to minus y, there is no change in the curve. So this is basically symmetric about the x-axis. Okay, symmetric about x-axis. Further check that if you put x equals to minus x, then also there is no change to the curve. So it also becomes symmetric about y-axis. That means you can tell that this is actually symmetric about origin. Okay, you can tell that this is symmetric about origin. Can we tell that actually? That is the main question. Symmetric about x-axis and symmetric about y-axis, does it indicate that it is symmetric about origin? It's not exactly same. Symmetric about x and y-axis is that, this is kind of, see, symmetric about origin, see, this is your, graph of the y is equals to x cube, let's say. Is it symmetric about x-axis? This is not symmetric about x-axis. This is not symmetric about y-axis too. But this is symmetric about origin. And this is not same as being symmetric about y and x both axes. So don't, get confused between being symmetric about x-axis and y-axis being same as the symmetric about origin. Okay. Make this pretty clear. Further, let us talk about the intersecting points. So putting y equals to 0, we have x square times a square minus x square is equals to 0. So from here what do we get? So from here get x equals to 0, 0, a and minus a. Clear? That means, see, you are again having two branches of this curve passing through origin. Clear? So what are the points? You have 0, 0, twice, a0 and minus a0. Clear? You can also check for the x square equal to 0 case. If you check, then x equals to 0, you will get y equals to 0. So the only point where actually the y-axis is getting intersected is at the origin itself. I guess this portion is clear. One second, let me drink some water. Okay, I guess this portion is clear. Okay. Acha. So now let's check that, what sort of a singular point are we getting at the origin. Clear. So let us check the lowest degree, equate the lowest degree portions. So what are the lowest degree cases which we are gonna have here? So we have y square and x square, right? So we have y square equals to x square again, which gives you y is equals to plus minus x. That means we are gonna have a node at the origin. Clear? We are going to have a node at the origin. Got it? Clear? Okay. Furthermore, do we have an asymptote here? Do we have an asymptote here? I don't think we are going to have a real asymptote here, because see, a square plus x square equals to 0 does not yield any real value, real solution to x. So we are not going to actually have an asymptote here. You can check for oblique asymptotes. But these only give you the oblique asymptotes, right? These are only giving you the oblique asymptotes. Kind of the oblique asymptotes, not exactly the oblique asymptotes. But when you are actually, when are you having an oblique asymptote? When the curve actually tends to infinity, right? Neither being parallel to y-axis, not being parallel to x-axis. So we can actually check that too. You can actually apply limit to it. Limit to it to check. I don't think applying limit to it will get to infinity, because as far as I am actually noticing this thing, it will actually be kind of a dumbbell shaped, something like that. Clear? Let's check the increasing and decreasing case. Let's do that. Okay, so asymptote wala case is completely clear, I guess. Domain will be same, minus a to a. Domain will be same. Here it will be including. Domain will be same. Clear? Okay. Further, if we check the increasing and decreasing portions, so your y actually becomes x root over of a square minus x square over a square plus x square. So your dy over dx becomes a to the power 4 minus 2a square x square minus x to the power 4 over a square plus x square whole to the power 3 over 2, a square minus x square whole to the power 3 over 2. And if you equate this to 0, what are you actually gonna have? Let's see. So if you equate this to 0, you're actually gonna have, or we are gonna check the all the possible inequalities of dy dx, not just 0. Okay, so let's see. So it is 0 when x equals to plus minus root over of minus 1 plus root 2 times a. It is going to be greater than 0 when x belongs to the interval, open interval, minus 1 root over of, sorry, minus this times a, comma, you have root over of minus 1 plus root 2 a. Similarly, it is less than 0 when x belongs to the interval minus a, comma, minus 1 root over of times a, or root over of minus 1 plus root 2 a, comma a. Clear? These are the intervals which you are getting. Therefore, applying all these things, what is the actual curve which you are gonna get? So let's see. So these are the points. This is minus a0, this is a0. You are having a node, so both these will give you a node. Okay, so both these portions is giving you a node. Acha, this point where you are having a maximum point, what is this? So this is this particular point. Okay, this particular point, and these intervals are given as here. So this is the actual curve which you actually require. You can also draw the tangents. Okay, so these are the basics of how to draw tangents to a particular curve. I may be bringing up more videos on curve tracing because it is a kind of a complex topic. So this lecture is up till this much. I hope you understood the video. We will be meeting in the next lecture.